Section 6.3 to round out the chapter is about graphing linear relations, and we've got a bunch of examples to go through today. Working example number 1, we need to graph a linear equation. We do that by first creating a table of values, and then from that table of values we will graph each linear equation as we go. So our first equation that we've been given is y is equal to negative 2x plus 1.5. So that's the equation we're working with. We've got two variables, x and y. So we're going to create a table of values for that. And to do that, let's see, I don't want to go off the page. We've got headers, x and y. And I'm actually going to do the third column on this one as well, which is y is equal to negative 2x plus 1.5. This is just going to be a place to do some work as we go through the process. So, somewhat randomly, I'm choosing 4 points where x is equal to 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, in order to find the y coordinates that match up with these x coordinates, we need to calculate it using our equation. So, negative 2x, well in this case x is 1, so I substitute it in. So this becomes negative 2 times 1 plus 1.5. This is our x value. Once we calculate what this is worth, that becomes our y value. So negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. Negative 2 plus 1.5 becomes negative 0.5. Now, on the next one, we're going to make x equal to 2. So it's the same equation, negative 2 times x, in this case x is 2, so we'll substitute in a 2, plus 1.5. Negative 2 times 2 is negative 4. Negative 4 plus 1.5 is negative 2.5. And so we continue this process through the chart. This time x is equal to 3, so I substitute it in. Negative 2 times 3 is negative 6. Negative 6 plus 1.5 is negative 4.5. And then lastly, we use 4 for the value of x. Negative 2 times 4 is negative 8. Negative 8 plus 1.5 becomes negative 6.5. So that's the process on figuring out our x and y coordinates, and that's pretty important. So now that we've got some points, we need to figure out how to graph this. Well, my x values are all positive, but my y values are all negative. So that means with our x values is positive and our y values is negative, we're actually going to be working in the fourth quadrant. And if you remember from previous classes, if this is your origin, these are your four quadrants. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we're working in the fourth quadrant. So we're going to have our axes sort of on the left side and on the top side. And I'm going to draw those in here for you. So there's our y-axis, where our x values or y values get placed. And then, let's see, we'll go here for our x-axis. And we should label these. That's our x-axis, that's our y-axis. And it looks something like that. Now we need to have some numbers written in on here. So I'm going to use every second line to go up by the value of 1. You want to try and fill your graph as much as you can. And I've given enough space here that I could have a negative 1 there as well, although we won't use it. And then on this graph, we can use each line. So negative 1, negative 2, etc. And up here, we've got a positive 1 and a positive 2. So there, we've got our axes labeled now with values. So now it's just a question of putting some points on the graph. So let's do that. First point is 1, and negative 0.5. Well, 1 is right here, and negative 0.5 is going to be a point right there. The next one is at 2 and negative 2.5. 2, negative 2.5 is there. 3, negative 4.5. So 3, negative 4.5 is right there. And then 4, negative 6.5. 4 and negative 6.5. So there, I've got 4 points now. We can actually draw a little circle around it, each one, because it's approximately in the right spot, but it's not guaranteed that it's going to be right when you're hand drawing it. So that provides a little room for error. And then we should join these with a line. So ruler is very handy for that. And then we should label the line, and I'm going to label it with the formula. Y is equal to negative 2x plus 1.5. So any value along this line should work with this equation. And that pretty much does it for graphing this one. Now, just another side note with your table of values. You're going up by 1 in the x value. It's consistent, it's steady, so that suggests that it might be linear. The way to confirm this is to check how much it changes in the y for each one. This goes down by 2, this goes down by 2, this goes down by 2. So it's consistently dropping by 2. So as long as they're both consistently changing the same amount, we're good. We know it's linear. And as we could see with these dots, it does form a straight line. So that's part A. Part B is much simpler in this particular instance. If you look at your formula, it's only got one variable. Well, in order to graph something, you have to have two variables. So if x is equal to 2, x is always equal to 2. It doesn't matter what y is equal to, x is always going to be equal to 2. So you can draw up your table of values using x and y again. And in this case, we don't need the third column. So x is 2, well, let's go with y is equal to 1. Doesn't really matter. These are somewhat arbitrary, the numbers that you pick. We usually pick something close to 0 because then you can have it close to your axes and you don't have to worry about drawing something ridiculously large. If y is 1, x is 2. If y is 2, x is 2. If y is 3, x is still 2. And if y is equal to 4, x is still 2. X is not going to change. So we can start with that. Both of these, or all of these numbers are positive, which means we're going to be working in the first quadrant. So when you're drawing your axes, you can use that as a reference. And we can draw it something like this. So we've got those on there. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is our y-axis. And then that'll be a -1 down there. And on here, oh, I don't know, let's see, we'll do every 3. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And that is our x-axis. So we've got our axes, they're labeled now, so now we can put some dots down. Well, the first one is at 2 and 1. 2 and 1, right there. The second one is at 2 and 2. 2 and 2. Third one is at 2 and 3. And then 2 and 4. Once again, we're doing this by hand, so to allow for some error, I'm drawing some circles around them. And then I will join them up with a line, which clearly we can see as a vertical line. And I will label that line as x is equal to 2. And that is your graph for part B. On the next page, we've got part C, which is a little bit more complicated. And I will pause here to give you a minute to get caught up.